In the early days of Evansville College, theater was an extracurricular activity. With the arrival of Professor Pearl Lecomte in 1926, the study of dramatic literature entered the curriculum. And with the 1957 arrival of Dr. Sam Smiley, theater productions became a vital part of campus life.
When President Hyde interviewed me, he said, "I have just one question. I just want to make sure that when you produce plays that you won't have young men standing on stage taking off their pants." And I said, what do you mean, Dr. Hyde? And he said, well, Mr. Heater did a play called Waiting for Godot. And one of the people who were supposed to be tramps took all his clothes off except his underwear. Now, can you do plays without doing that? And I said, I think I could manage that, Dr. Hyde. And so I promised him that I wouldn't have anybody in their underwear on stage. And I don't think I did.
He's the person who started everything that happens here. He had a goal in mind that he wanted to create a company of artists that were committed to the kind of theater that he wanted to do.
The department was extremely small when I started here. I mean, very few theater majors.
In fact, I don't know that any of them were majors. I think at that time, because we weren't a department, I don't think there was a theater major.
Dr. Smiley, Dr. Thomas were very good at spotting students in their various speech classes who could possibly be used on stage.
If I saw a young woman or a young man who'd make a good actor, I would say, "You're going to try out. And I'm going to use you. You'll make a great leading man."
I was in Dr. Smiley's wife's speech class, and she told him about me.
Ron Glass was discovered in a class and was talked into auditioning for a play that happened.
One of my sorority sisters said there was going to be a play, Love Rides the Rails, and I auditioned for it. But I auditioned because I was in the wrong room and they shut the door.
Anybody who stuck their head in the theater had to be careful, because the next thing they knew, they were waving their arms around, talking loud in front of people. Nursing students, engineering students, you name it, were roped into, politely asked to be involved in the theater.
And boy, oh boy, were they good. And these hardworking kids from Evansville Streetcar College were wonderful young actors. They were brilliant.
We performed at that time in a variety of spaces. We did plays in what was called at that time Great Hall, or the Great Hall, in the old Union building.
We also performed in the Olmsted Hall, big kind of open, it always felt like it was made of marble to me, I don't know.
We had the old quonset huts.
The quonset hut.
Quonset hut.
All I remember is all the productions over in the temporary buildings, the quonset huts.
It seemed like they were tin roof buildings designed first of all for junior ROTC. And then somehow or other, Dr. Smiley said, we can use this space.
I told Dr. Hyde, I can't do theater on an old-fashioned 1920s kind of stage. He said, well, where will you do them? And so I looked around, and there's a 40 by 60 room, 14 feet high. And I said, that'll be a great theater.
It was basically a big empty room that every production we had to recreate everything. The seating space, the stage, everything. It had low ceilings, so it was poor lighting.
It was rectangular, so most often we had audiences on three sides, and they could reach out and touch us. They didn't, but they could have if they'd wanted to.
The costume shop was also the women's dressing room.
We had two long closets that were considered dressing rooms.
If you had to go to the bathroom, you had to leave the building and go next door, because there were no bathrooms in this place.
It was hard to imagine that you could put on productions in that room. But I felt that what they were doing was just special.
As a matter of fact, there were some really wonderful productions done in the Quonset hut.
And we sold out every seat, every night for every production. And you know why? Because we had folding chairs and we put up as many chairs as there were people who came. So we always had a full house and sold out every production.
We had a lot of good times and good productions in there.
Some beautiful things were done there, but we were ready to run with the big boys. We wanted a theater of our own.
In the decade between 1957 and 1967, 12 buildings were built on campus, culminating with the construction of Hyde Hall and the attached Shanklin Theatre. Finally, the recently formed Department of Speech and Drama would have a proper home.
Shanklin Theatre was largely a design of Sam's. He had seen a number of theaters, and mainly in Stratford, Canada, and also the Guthrie Theatre in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he wanted a thrust theater like those two theaters.
I did the architectural drawing, and the architects, to the inch, did what I asked them to do. I even changed the name of the theater. They misspelled the word theater. They spelled it the contemporary journalistic way, but we have to do it the European French way. Theater, R-E.
Shanklin Theatre, named for a prominent Evansville family, opened on April 14, 1967 with a production of Hamlet, directed by Dr. Smiley at what was now the University of Evansville.
There was no doubt about what show Sam Smiley wanted to do.
We knew we were going to do Hamlet.
Hamlet was, for me, the right play to do in what would become a classical and experimental, up-to-date theater program. And then we had to find the actors. And for me, the best, most talented actor that I could find was John David Lutz. And he was a kid that went to some school and then went to Indiana University and didn't like any of those programs.
I had been a student at Indiana University and I didn't do that well academically, and they asked me to go away and think about it. So I transferred here, and because I was hired on the faculty a year after I had graduated, I was on the faculty when I played Hamlet.
Of course, Hamlet was John David, and then Ron Glass was in it, and Sharon Overman, Marcia Bennett.
We just seemed like a really great ensemble that came together.
And as I look back at the cast picture, I thought, my, that was a stellar group to be all in one place at one time.
I think there might have been a slight delay in getting this place open. So we had quite a period of time between the time we knew what we were cast and the time we actually got in here and, you know.
It felt kind of like we rehearsed forever.
But once it finally got built and we moved out of the Quonset hut and came here, I mean, it was just night and day.
The opening of Shanklin was, in a certain kind of way, the biggest thing that had ever happened in my life. I was so excited because it meant that all of the preparation and expectation and promise was now represented in stone. It was real.
The first time I stepped inside Shanklin Theatre, I was 15 years old. I was a high school student at Wright's, and Eva Kennard brought her theater class to see Hamlet. It was kind of like walking into an alternate universe. The sets, the costumes, everything were magnificent in my mind.
What a magnificent play. There wasn't a part of that play that wouldn't want you to have a standing ovation for it.
The audience was, very, very appreciative. Everybody, I'm sure, was just awed by the newness of it, the difference of it, the comfort of it.
I think they felt that the university department deserved this. It was like, finally, this department and these people have what they should have for the quality of work that they do.
Everything before Shanklin was a rehearsal. Shanklin was a performance.
Only a year after the opening of Shanklin Theatre, the university was invited to perform at the American College Theatre Festival in Washington, D.C., and the theater program soon garnered regional and national attention.
I think when we started here, we just loved doing theater.
I mean, we were all a bunch of kids from Evansville, a few people from Indy or whatever, but largely Indiana people.
But our national reputation with graduate schools and professional theater companies was strong very early.
But the American College Theatre Festival started in the early 70s.
It's almost like the NCAA tournament starts off locally, then regionally, and then eventually a number of plays are picked to perform nationally.
They brought a number of productions to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C.
I don't think it was the first time we participated in it. It might have been, but we did Molière's The Imaginary Invalid, and I can remember performing it here and being judged, and then going to Athens, Ohio, because we were picked as one of the regional contestants, and never really dreaming that we were going to go further than that. And yet we ended up in Washington, D.C.
Imaginary Invalid was done in the Ford's Theater before the Kennedy Center was finished.
And that was really a wonderful experience.
In one hand, kind of eerie, because he'd look up at the box and go, oh.
I do remember being on stage, and just to my left and above me was the box in which Lincoln was assassinated. And I don't think you can be on that stage without at some point thinking, that's a very historic moment that happened right there just above you.
Those early productions that we did established us on a more national basis.
That was probably really helpful in getting our shows seen, for sure, but also acknowledged as being very artistic.
It's gone to Kennedy Center more times than any other college or university, including Yale or Harvard or in California or anybody you want to mention.
To be chosen as many times as Evansville has been chosen to go not only to the regionals, but to actually go to Washington, D.C. It's the American theater scene saying that you have a program that's pretty special, that there's something correct being done here on all levels.
That's what really, I think, helped us a lot become more of a school on a national level. And then the 70s and then into the 80s, through those years, the placement of students into really top-notch graduate schools.
Yale, Juilliard, etc. And the next thing you know, they're on Broadway. They're on hit television shows.
That kind of recognition can't do anything except bring us a really strong image.
And then in the 80s, we started recruiting.
When I was the chair, I decided we needed to go out and find people from a greater distance, and that's what we've done, and that's been a boost to what it is that we accomplish here.
So it was from American College Theatre Festival to the placement of students in great graduate schools, the recruitment process, and it just was a building block.
With the increased size of the department came the construction of the May Studio Theatre in 1994, next to the recently expanded Shanklin Theatre production studios. But at the heart of it all remains the 482-seat Shanklin Theatre.
The first time that you walk in Shanklin, anybody that has a theatrical background or any inclination toward theater, you know immediately that it's something special.
It's a very special space. You can't walk into Shanklin Theatre and not go, you know, what is this?
And there's a special energy inside of a theater, kind of like a magnetism. You feel that as soon as you walk into Shanklin. I mean, you know that there's magic happening there.
I didn't actually get to see a show, I think, in the Shanklin until I got to school there, but I remember walking into that theater and saying this was the best theater that I had seen.
I remember being like, I've never seen a stage like this before, so what is this about?
It was really the first kind of theater I'd experienced like that. The plays we would do in high school, we didn't necessarily have a stage, so we used the commons area, which is essentially where people just ate lunch. And so we'd build our sets, and people still had to eat lunch. So, you know, Robert Bridegroom, and people were just like eating their square pizza. So Shanklin Theatre was quite an upgrade.
I was like, this is some next level here. Like, this is something that was totally unexpected. The
first time I was there where there was like something going on would have been fall semester of freshman year doing the auditions.
You didn't have to be cast in a main stage show to get to perform in Shanklin, because every single semester that's where we did both our general auditions for casting, and that's where we also did our departmental auditions where we'd get faculty feedback.
Auditioning on the Shanklin stage could be quite intimidating.
It's nerve-wracking.
The first audition was terrifying.
Horrible experience all around.
The entire acting program and everybody else in the department who'd like to audition for the season goes onto the stage and they do their pieces, and you do them in front of basically the entire department.
You common cry of curse, whose breath I hate as reek of the rotten fence, whose love I prize more than the dead carcasses of unburied men that do corrupt my hair, I banish you!
You're auditioning in front of all your classmates, upperclassmen.
You got your professor sitting back there with the table, arms crossed, judging silently.
You just seemed so small on that giant theater.
I remember the first time we showed up, Josh Bajoni, who was a junior then, came down and told us his horror story, which was a long, involved horror story about how bad it went for him, to make us all feel better. So I thought, okay.
General auditions my freshman year, first semester, and I hadn't prepared because somehow I missed the memo.
I did a monologue from Brighton Beach Memoirs with a Southern accent because I had never read the play. And they let me stay at school.
I remember one time we had to come in with a Shakespeare piece prepared, and I had it and I practiced it and I was ready to go. I made choices, and I'll be damned, you get up there and just gone. I didn't get cast that semester, I remember. I don't remember why.
The first thing I was cast in was House of Blue Leaves.
The first time that I was on the stage as an actor was our production of Noise Is Off.
Roots in a Parched Ground, Horton Foote. I had grown a beard for the play, so I stopped by Lutz's office and I said, John David, should I keep the beard? And he was writing and he went, oh, Gerson, you don't think I cast you because you could act, do you? Keep the beard. Back to rec.
There's just this sense of overwhelming pride, just the sense of, man, I made it, I'm on the Shanklin Theatre stage.
And learning to work in that kind of a space as an actor, it's a great exercise, learning how to work in that kind of space, maintain connection with the other actors on the stage, and still connecting with the audience around you.
It was so much different than what I was used to at Central High School. At Central High School, there was this big orchestra pit between the apron of the stage and the auditorium, so there might have been 20 feet, if not more, between you and the first person. But as an actor at Shanklin, you might be 3, 4, 5 feet, if not closer. That was initially intimidating.
If I turn, I'm looking straight into section 3 as I'm crying or screaming or laughing.
Come and sit you down! You shall not budge! You go now, I'll set you up a class where you may see the inner part!
There's a connection, there's not a fourth wall.
In really poignant moments, you'll hear them breathing. You'll hear one person laugh or one person cry or be moved by a scene, and as deep as you are into character, you cannot help but feel or sense that.
The audience became essentially another character. That impacted the show every night, this sort of timbre and the energy. And I remember my senior year, I played Abigail in The Crucible, and hearing people gasp and cursing me under their breath and hating me, and how that fueled me, and I loved that.
You really do begin to feel as though you are the center of their attention, and therefore you had better be doggone good.
I remember in Oklahoma, like when jokes wouldn't land or something, you could just see people just like moving around in their seats, and you're like, oh. When it's great, it's great. They're just like giving you everything and you like can feel it. But when it's terrible, you are just pedaling 10 times harder.
I love to have that connection with the audience when I'm on stage. It is the reason why you do theater. And Shanklin really taught that to a younger actor. How that energy and flow coming back and forth is the thing that brings the magic about when you're doing a line.
I was so grateful to have that experience of that sort of relationship. I know what that's like to have someone this far away from you and have somebody else see you from over here. It's a very cool space.
To this day, I haven't been on a stage like the Shanklin. I really think it's one of a kind, and it is one of the most fun stages that you can work on.
And I was lucky enough to do some amazing plays. I was lucky enough to do The Three Sisters. I
directed Richard III.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
The Merchant of Venice.
Macbeth.
Macbeth.
The Scottish play. I'm going to say Macbeth.
Oh.
I'm going to say it.
Flying West.
Skin of Our Teeth.
Godspell.
Godspell.
Godspell always sticks out.
The first show I saw was Handler. No, that's not true at all.
Blood Brothers.
9.
Master Harold and the Boys.
The Crucible.
I did Between Daylight and Boonville.
The Last Night of Ballyhoo.
The first show was 12th Night. Definitely 12th Night. I remember I was like super into Amanda Sykes because she was so hot.
The most fun I think I've had was playing Witch Boy in Dark of the Moon.
The Grapes of Wrath.
The Grapes of Wrath and the Kentucky Cycle.
The Kentucky Cycle.
Jack's Holiday.
Candide. The Diviners.
The Diviners.
Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd.
The production of Sweeney Todd that John David Lutz directed is in my top 3 shows I've ever seen in my life. Working on that stage never felt effortful. It's like walking outside on a perfect spring day when it's not too hot, it's not too cold. I just step out on there and it feels easy.
Recruiting students with exceptional talent, an outstanding academic ability, rigorous theater training within an exceptional liberal arts institution, and an active alumni network all contribute to unprecedented stability for UE graduates in a notoriously transient profession.
It's not easy to make a life in the arts. It's not easy to have a life in the theater.
My husband says he told his students that a great number of them would be being trained to be an educated audience. And I remember sitting there thinking, that's true.
I think one of the things that happened early on after I graduated, moved to New York, I called John David Lutz and I said, John, I don't feel quite as prepared as I should be for these auditions and what I'm doing. And I said, I think you should decide, are you creating in your theater department future teachers or future professionals? I think that decision, it was sort of like adjusting the rudder and the sails on a boat. The focus of the education changed and really honed in on creating professional working artists.
The base of education that you get at Evansville, it's really, really well-rounded. That was, to me, what was most important when I was looking for an undergraduate college. I didn't want 2 years of very precise diction training. I wanted to get all of it.
I think you need that, the understanding of all parts of theater. If you're going to be, it's a team sport.
Well, yeah, we encourage our students to be participants in more than just the area that they want to focus the most in.
When I was there, I was learning about how to be an actor, but I was also learning about directing and costume design and all aspects of storytelling.
We had to learn how to hang a light, and we had to learn how to do a focus. We had to learn how to design a set.
Every time I have cleaned a paintbrush since 1981, I've thought of Joe Flauto, who taught me how to properly clean a paintbrush. I'm not kidding. It takes a long time. It's really annoying. But, you know, I can use a drill. I ran sound here.
It really does give you insight and just experience with those things that you otherwise might not seek out.
That is valuable because you are getting to learn it, but you're also getting to learn how to respect people who do that.
By the time I left the University of Evansville, I had a complete understanding of production, total production. So when you're on a movie set, I can speak to every one of the technicians. I can read a blueprint. I can talk to the costume designer. Now, I may not be able to design the best costume, but I know the process.
And it's not so much that you have to have those things in order to get by. It makes you a better actor. It makes you a better collaborator.
We've had so much success collectively because of how well-rounded that education was.
We know the bold-faced names, right? The people who are in front of camera or on the Broadway stage.
I think we had 3 people win Emmy Awards here 2 or 3 years ago. Rami Malek most recently won the Best Actor in a Serious Series.
Those people, we know their names and we read about them and we see them regularly. And they're very successful and we're very proud of them. But there are just as many more actually, who are working all the time on Broadway, regional theaters, directing, producing, stage managing, designing. They're working continuously.
The school has set such a great foundation, and a lot of people went off to grad school. Some people went straight to New York or Los Angeles, but the foundation is an Evansville foundation.
It's the best acting training program in the country.
bar none.
I think the program at Evansville, it focuses on discipline and the homework and doing the work.
The standards at Evansville are very high, and the expectation is very high.
And who wouldn't want to hire somebody who really believes that doing the job right every time, doing it very well, is just normal?
I often audition young people for Shakespeare companies that I work for, and when I go in an audition, I know what I'm going to get from an Evansville kid. And so we request them all the time. A lot of us stay close and work together still. I am working on a number of projects in New York right now, and they're all with Evansville people.
I think it's because people become so much like a family when they're here. They want to continue that.
It's definitely a familial feeling and something that I don't think other departments really have.
And that was one of the things that drew me to the school, was I could tell in interacting with the students when I visited that this was a supportive and highly creative environment of really interesting people, and that was something I wanted to be a part of.
I remember, orientation, it was like, this is my family. We're gonna do shows together. We're gonna be jealous of each other, we're going to be supportive of each other, but it's gonna be like a real family.
And then we just stuck to each other and protected each other in that way. And it's been 20 years and most of us are still best friends.
We have remained very close, which is very rare. My wife joked with me before I came. She goes, I'm friends with one person from my undergraduate department. I know one person. And she said, and they're even hard to keep in touch with. But you know most of your friends from there.
We remain very close. I'm friends with people who went to school here, not in my class necessarily, but some of them are in my class, some of them came after me, and there is a real feeling of family. They've done an incredible job with keeping alumni connected. They do alumni events every single year in New York. Now they do Chicago, LA.
New York in particular, there'll be 150 alums there. And invariably, the older alums will come up and say, okay, who just graduated? Who are the new ones? Introduce me.
And so it is a bit of a mafia.
It's everywhere, and in every aspect, which is what's great. It's not actors, it's not just designers, it's theater management people, and stage managers, and marketing people, and designers, and technicians, and actors, everywhere.
I mean, it's almost like having a fraternity, but it's more than that. I had David McFadden emailing me, because I worked with him at New Harmony briefly, say that he was gonna come see Hamlet, and he was so excited. And it's like David McFadden, who is like a gajillionaire out in Los Angeles right now. And you're just like, that was nice.
The alumni support that we get from, not only from the university, but from other alumni. I don't know of any other school that provides this kind of environment and support after we graduate. I really feel like I'm part of the extended UAT family. It's tight. That family is tight.
In celebration of the 50th anniversary of the opening of Shanklin Theatre, the department again produced Hamlet in the spring of 2017 and welcomed over 200 friends and alumni back to campus. I count myself proud to be among the vast network of theater alumni working around the globe, and I thank you for your time in viewing this documentary and celebrating the past 50 years with us.